Ready?
Okay.
Let's make this happen. Good night, good morning, dear friends everywhere in the world and outside of it. This is Jeremy Qvick's and Scott Hicks' Cognitive Yoga Bootcamp. And after 4 boot camps, we are now in the position that we want to introduce you our ground work, meaning the work that is in a way base of everything else we have done.
And I'm glad to be here. And what we're going to do is take one of the greatest artistic creations in the history of the world, Rudolf Steiner's The Philosophy of Freedom, or The Philosophy of Spiritual Activity, and we're going to use it as a tool to wrestle our way through a few labyrinths, to fight our way through some battles, to see if we can answer some questions for ourselves that everyone has. Things like, are we free? What is thinking? And is there any kind of self-justifying support for human existence?
Yeah, who we are and what is the possibility that we as humans can develop here in our lives. Something that gives meaning to our lives. And this is the book and this is the work with Scott and ben-aharon and Global Event College and Global School, through which I guess we have found that the work.
Mm-hmm. So let's jump right in, and we're going to start with a passage from the preface to the revised edition from 1918, Philosophy of Spiritual Activity. Many times it's used as an appendix in various translations, but translation issues are not of great importance to us. Whatever translation you have to work with that one. And looking at a variety, looking at the German, they're all helpful, but ultimately they can't solve the problem which you have to solve by human consciousness. So, starting right at the beginning, Steiner says, quote, "Everything to be discussed in this book is oriented toward 2 root questions of human soul life. One question is whether a possibility exists of viewing, of intuiting the being of man in such a way that this view or this intuition proves to be a support for everything else which, through experience and science, approaches him, but which he feels cannot support itself and can be driven by doubt and critical judgment into the realm of uncertainty." So that's question 1. Second question, quote, "The other question is this: is man, as a being who wants and wills, justified in considering himself to be free? Or is this inner freedom a mere illusion that arises in him because he does not see the threads of necessity upon which his willing depends, just as much as any happening in nature?"
All right.
So 2 root questions. Let's see if we can restate in a simpler but also in a legitimate form what Steiner's saying in these 2 root questions. He has a beautiful. It's really a beautiful way that it's described as these root questions which are roots.
Yeah, and let's try to wrestle in those labyrinths, because already I experienced that. God damn it! How can I ever understand what that just was said?
It's complicated, I know.
Yeah. So the first question starts whether a possibility exists of viewing, and Scott added the real word intuiting, a being of man in such a way that this intuition proves to be a support for everything else, which through experience and science approaches him. So what do you say? Where he's pointing here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's pointing to a search for a particular vantage point. So it's a view, it's a vantage point, a place where I can see, where I can perceive. And is this place where I perceive, is it a self-supporting place? It's almost like imagining that you're floating in the middle of space and there's no support, no planets, no rocks, no satellites, and you're trying to see if you can create out of this emptiness, out of this uncertainty, a place which can sustain life and doesn't have to be justified by external means.
Okay. So what I just heard is that in space I can't, in principle, let's use this image. I can't move my hand because there is nothing that gives me resistance or whatsoever. So basically I'm just floating by the circumstances from outside. And if I now observe my beingness, I could say that this could be a daily experience of how the human is. I was born, I'm being raised, I'm a Finnish person, I have a physical body, right? Everything outside in the world, every knowledge, everything is given to me from outside. So someone has given to me these things. And even when I experience my thoughts and my feelings, they are also given to me in a way that if I now strip away my self-loving image of myself, can I say that there is nothing what Scott was speaking of, self-supporting viewing or self-supporting vantage point or self-supporting state of consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, my thought is here, my feeling is there, my body is there, my everything is kind of mixed in this constant movement of change.
Yeah, and if I could, I think that one thing you mentioned there is really important to emphasize, and that is the self-supporting. It's self-supporting. So not only is it a support for something else, but it's a support for a self. So is there a real Jeremy aside from the fact that you're culturally and geographically and linguistically Finnish? Is there a Scott that's not just male gender in a body American living in Pennsylvania, but something that not when you set everything aside it disappears, and I give my inwardness over to complete obliteration, let's say. But is there a view that can support a self? But this view, this region, this vantage point, this activity can support a self, can sustain my own being, like can give me nutrients and life, which can allow me to live in the world, in a confusing world, which doesn't have a lot of outer signposts which give us security.
Mm. So when I heard you, I was kind of imagining how that would look or how that would feel. But already, if I have a look of it, then the perception or the mental image which I'm having is again given. So I can't find support from that. Also feeling is a given in that sense as well. So how it turns to me is that, is there anything? Like when I die, for example, is there just, like nothingness that leaves when everything is gone? Or when I die or when I get enlightenment, is there anything else than just this universal existence that I just become part of? I don't know.
Yeah, these are the questions. These are the root questions. These are the beautiful trails of roots, rhizomatic trailing in Deleuze's terminology, and struggling through caverns, struggling through underground regions. It's not so clear, and I think that Steiner is brilliant the way that he sets it up here, and that he's not saying this is the reality ABC, but he's saying, okay, let's set up this particular kind of pulsing riddle, a life riddle, and let's set up these particular artistic parameters of thinking and of existence and of real questions. I mean, he says directly after, this isn't just like a theoretical question, but it's something that means something to each person. Am I free? Am I really free, or am I just a slave to instincts, to biology, electromagnetic forces, evil demons, the internet?
All right, so you brought up here a moving, living, pulsating struggle, energizing struggle. So let's start to wrestle with this question. Well, I guess we already started, but I want to be super clear what we are doing, so I know that you can do it as well if you follow with your thinking the book. Since Steiner says in some addition to some lecture in somewhere that if you are able to play the book's thought in your thinking, you would find that you are a spiritual being, self-supporting spiritual being in the spiritual world. And that's what we are after, not a new explanation of what is anything, but actually just find what that could let us understand who am I, what is the world, and what is freedom.
Yeah, an Archimedean lever that could lift the whole world off its hinges. And I just wanted to emphasize, as you're rightly saying, that if the viewer, if you guys can follow our activity, we are not just theoretically describing something in an abstract way that we're not living. Because of our training and because of our dedication to Steiner, we are only demonstrating it. So if we're not demonstrating it, then it's not real. If we are demonstrating it and it is legitimate, then we're living it. So, and I think that's what he suggests here in the next paragraph. And we're going to then shift to another quote from the Philosophy of Freedom and struggle with this a bit more. This question of representation versus reality and the basic questions and riddles of the human soul.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is from, what chapter is
Chapter
this?
4.
Chapter 4.
It's called World as Perception.
Okay. And this is a quote, actually, from Foucault's book on Kant's theory of knowledge. So essentially it's a brief quote by a German writer in, I believe, the 19th century, describing the Kantian viewpoint of knowledge. And Steiner's quoting from this guy, because this guy does a nice job in kind of summarizing what Kant's viewpoint was.
And we chose it because it shows how the doubt and how the construction of our consciousness, how we can view that from the scientific, materialistic, philosophical point of view, is being put together. So maybe we can wrestle it through with our thinking and find there's some loopholes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's right, and I think that one of our primary opponents in the Ultimate Fighting Championship has to be Immanuel Kant, this one of the most brilliant philosophers that ever lived, essentially in the end of the 18th century, producing what's called the first critique, the Critique of Pure Reason. And this book really turned the whole world upside down. And it, in a very large way, supports all of the natural scientific research that happens today. It's this basic fundamental viewpoint of modern life. So, if I could read it now, the quote is from Foucault's book on Kant's theory of knowledge. The first fundamental principle which the philosopher has to bring to clear consciousness consists in the recognition that our knowledge to begin with does not reach beyond our representations, our mental images, our ideas. Our representation is the only thing we experience and learn to know directly. And just because we have direct experience of it, even the most radical doubt cannot rob us of our knowledge. By contrast, the knowledge that goes beyond our representations, taking this expression here in the widest possible sense, so that all physical happenings are included in it, is open to doubt. Hence, at the very beginning of all philosophizing, all knowledge which goes beyond representations must explicitly be set down as being open to doubt.
So, in a nutshell, what he says is that we only can rely on our representations, and everything else than our mental images of the stuff, including the whole world outside, everything inside, is
you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be put on doubt, because what I actually see when I see Scott, I see my picture of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And exactly now I see a new Scott, but you became already old to me.
Mm-hmm. That's right, because you recognized this is a faux fur hat that keeps my ears warm when I'm struggling with Kant on the internet for all of our friends. So the basic idea is that when I have a bottle of chameleon cold brew, Mexican coffee, I really can never know the glass itself. I can never know the inner experience of what coffee's like. I never know what Jeremy's inner experience is like. I never know what it's like to be the dragon hat itself. I only get colors, I get orientations in space, I have ideas. Certainly I can associate what I see now of your hat with past experiences of other hats and times when I've seen you before. And in fact, when I look back in my own memories, I could be even more radical in this and say, all the people that I've experienced before, I can remember them in my mental images, in my memories, but really I can never know their inner experience aside from the projections or expressions that are formed by something that's called the in itself, this Ding an sich.
Yeah. So, what our thinking does is that it actually creates a photographical picture or idea of the world outside and of the world inside as well. And like Scott said, I can never know Scott because I have only my ideas. But actually I can never know the world. How can we know that the color that I see is a real color? I know Scott says the same color than me, but who knows? And even if we both experience it the same color, how do we know it's a real color and not just some frequencies in the air, and this whole world around us is just another matrix? And so now we are, do you see what I mean? Everything inside and outside are pictures, and our thinking can only picture again those pictures. So I'm lost here.
Yeah, I think it is. It's like a labyrinth that we're trapped in that we really don't know whether we can get out. And that's exactly what this video is really about. Can we recognize that we're in a labyrinth or a matrix at all? And is there a way out? And if we know how to get in, can we get out again? So, and if we consciously enter into Kant's viewpoint, can we escape it again? Or are we just trapped, you know? And I think there is a way out. I mean, we've come into the labyrinth before. We've got a way out of it. I've made my own special key that can get me out of this labyrinth of representations. Steiner has showed his keys that he created. I've made my own keys, dug my own escape routes based on his formations, and so now I can plug my key into the philosophy of freedom art machine and find a vantage point which is a little bit outside of representation. So
yeah, but
let's see if we can. Yeah, let's see if we can get there.
Let's not give Scott too easy escape route.
Okay.
I will be a complete beginner as I am, and I will hold Scott's escape road in my view, so we can find a way that we can all follow. All right.
Okay.
So let's start from the first step. What is the first step? That everything we see here are just our ideas, our pictures.
Yeah.
There's nothing objective.
Mm-hmm. So I have. Can we just take the dragon hat? I mean, it's the most impressive thing beside your face that's on the screen. Let's look at this thing. So we have a direct experience of this as a real. It's a real object though in the external world, isn't it? I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it. I could light it on fire. I sell it on eBay for $79.99. I paint a picture of it, and I can remember it when I turn away. I have a mental image of it. Actually, I feel like I know this thing pretty well.
So why just then your or our representation? Why we can't say this is the real hat and we are living in a real reality?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could. I mean, if we do that, then we have to give up the whole search because we're not philosophers at all. If we just say everything we see, everything we touch, everything we scratch, everything we touch and smell and eat and grab, it's all just real. So everything's real. I live in a real world. I eat, drink, be happy, be merry, and tomorrow we die.
So tell me the representation.
Okay, well, there could be a representation. So this is something that wait a second, but if I turn away from it for a second, I see the hat in my mind's eye, and I can turn it around in my mind. I can see the black color in my mind, and I know that people have told me that I have a brain. I've watched movies where I see how the light comes into the eye, and then the eye goes down the optical nerve and sends signals into the brain, and the brain actually creates its own version of this. In fact, they've already more or less proved that the light comes into the eye in a reversed upside down image. So what I'm actually experiencing inwardly is an upside down hat. I'm definitely not experiencing the hat as it is in reality, and actually I'm limited by the fact that I'm in a body. Maybe if I were not in my own body, if I were able to float into the place where the hat is, to change my form, to become a fairy or something and join with the hat, then it could be real. But I'm always limited by my own organism. Yeah, my own subjectivity, my own organism.
So when I touch it, it's said that I don't actually touch the real material. I only experience my reaction in my fingers. And when I hear Scott's voice, or when I hear my voice, there's a constant identification with my voice or his voice. The similar way that you listen music, you always know that it's music and it has bass and guitars and drums. Have you ever remember the time when you listened to music and it just was very in the pure experience? I don't, because I've always known it's music, it's blah 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 blah, what my parents have told me about it, and I know this is leather, right? Can you see this without knowing it's a leather hat? Well, obviously you can lie to yourself saying, well, that's a real dragon. Well, let's cut the shit, huh? So, this is a theory that I'm inside my body and I have no access of knowing or experiencing anything of this. And only thing that I can think are the pictures and theories that the scientists have given me from outside. And I'm trapped. You know, there's no way out, because always when I think there are just more pictures or ideas, blah 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 blah. So I can try to close my thinking and just to find a pure experience just by stop thinking.
Right. So that could be one alternative. So you have a variety of alternatives in the wrestling match. You could say, well, if everything is just an image, if I'm trapped in a world of images, you could feel suffocated by that. And you could say, I could never know the real world, so this could lead to nihilism on one sense. You say life has no meaning, it's only mental images. I can never know the world, so we get depressed because of it.
Or if there is a meaning, I can never know it. We can never know if there's life after death. We can never know. It's only faith. It's only trust in something that we can't know.
Yeah, and I would say, just as a final summary of the representational standpoint, is this really, really strong idea that we have to wrestle with, and that is the idea that, like when you have a footprint that is stepping in the sand, when you look at the sand afterwards, you see this imprint of the foot, but the real foot, you don't know what it is. So this is the same image as we have, the Kantian viewpoint has, of the representation that the human can only be the sand which is stamped upon by the foot, or the wax which is imprinted by a sealing ring on an envelope. So we're just being imprinted by rings and feet and hands, which we can never really experience in the real world.
Yeah, meaning atoms and particles and wavelengths that coming to our senses inside, and our brain creates a subjective picture of that. So we are there. So let's dig ourselves out here. So can we admit we are in a hole now? We are in the labyrinth now. Scott, are you in the labyrinth?
I'm in the labyrinth. Yeah, I really am fully in the labyrinth. Although I might be able to get out. I might be able to get out of the straitjacket. I have a few ideas. I have a few vantage points that might be able to free me.
What do you say, my friends? Are we following him? Do we actually know that he actually exists, or is he just my subjective representation? Or are we both only subjective representations that you have in your own reality, that there's nothing else than you? So should we trust? Let's give him a little try, like a small try.
A small try to get out. So I can try to get out a little bit?
But only if, let's make it a little bit more difficult on him. But only if you let me to do the every second step. Okay.
You lead me and hold me back. Okay, so Steiner's a good teacher. And my teacher, Yeshayahu ben-aharon, is a good teacher, and he's emphasized this again and again, and that is that thinking is the activity which creates any mental representations whatsoever. Thinking is what dreams up the idea of atoms and the imprints in the sand. Thinking, in fact, created the notion of representations in the first place.
Okay, so what Scott is saying...
I was getting excited, so I thought it was... Okay.
Let's always, sometimes he needs a little bit shackles.
Yeah.
So what Scott is saying is that there is something that we call thinking that creates mental images, that creates thoughts, right? That creates representations. So are you saying that there is something called thinking that creates everything that I experience now here?
Yes, definitely. And I believe that each person in the modern world, an adult, children don't experience it this way yet, but an adult, human over 21, they can experience that they have a grasp of their thinking activity, and if they hone their attention, they can focus on this concept forming, attention moving, meaning generating activity, which in fact, the more you look into it, it forms the entire structure and order of all perceptions that we see around us.
Wow, so you say that there is an activity in us that... No, you're not only saying that thinking is everywhere, but you say also that we have access to that thinking and we can activate and strengthen that muscle so we can actually find the creator of our perceptual and our conceptual world. Mm-hmm. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, because thinking is something which orders and organizes the percept world. So when I look over there, I see a lamp, but the lamp itself, I don't see a lamp. I actually see at this point a little bit of yellow. At that point, a light that's coming. I see an angle on that side. I see reflections on metal on this side. But actually, it's only thinking which organizes it into a coherent whole of a lamp and associates it with a concept. But furthermore, there's all these underlying concepts that are continuously formed, because as soon as I look at that object out there as a lamp, or look at this object here as a hat, I accompany it with these very sneaky, pervasive ideas that there's a world of space that exists outside of the body, and that this object is out there and I'm in here. The notion of an object out here and a subject in here is created by an activity of thinking, which is earlier than all of this structure that we produce.
Okay, Scott. Now you gave me lots of stuff. Mm-hmm. Let us try to cut that and find those elements that you mentioned. You mentioned that when I perceive an object, that I see here actually colors and forms, and actually the space that is created between me and it, and this idea that I am in my body and there's empty space around us is also, I'm not sure did you say that, but did you meant that it's produced by our thinking? Mm-hmm. So how do we know it's a real thing? How do we know that thinking is something objective, something real, and not just that representational image?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's something that you have to struggle with through for years, to dig the tunnel further and further out. Mm-hmm. So we get to this vantage point where we look closer and closer at thinking activity, and we see, okay, what is the concept of space? Can I use my thinking to look into the concept of space? How is that different from the concept of a banana or a donut?
Okay, so mm-hmm. I'm engaging into look into my thinking, right? and see the concept of space and concept of banana or concept of hat, for example. So how do I do that? How do you open yourself into experiencing something that I don't see here in my physical eyes?
Mm-hmm. I believe that we all have an experience of being able to search through the meaning of things. So we ask, what is the meaning of that? Those organization of objects out there. Oh, that's a pile of books. What is the meaning of this? These various colors on the page. Oh, that's the back cover to Love and Rockets number 6.
Okay, so when I look at your hat and I know it's light blue, can I find that activity that knows it's a light blue hat? Can I find that meaning of light blue color? Or can I find the meaning of t-shirt in my experience? Am I getting now into the right track?
Yeah, exactly. And when you search for the concept of a t-shirt, it's normal to think it through, to perhaps see a whole bunch of different kinds of t-shirts: white t-shirt, blue t-shirt, red t-shirt.
Okay, let
to
me
go
do
through
it.
them. Yeah.
So
okay.
there's white t-shirt, blue t-shirt. No, blue's a little bit difficult. Yeah. Okay, blue t-shirt, pink t-shirt, and you said some kind of...
Yeah, rotate them around from every angle. Are they infinitely large? Are they infinitely small? Do they fit on molecules? Are they as large as giants? Go through any possible shirt whatsoever, and then we set aside all of the any image and ask our thinking, what does it mean for any t-shirt to exist whatsoever? What is the concept of a t-shirt? And there's a feeling, there's a will nature, and there's a conceptual meaning activity that's inside a region which is not sensible.
Okay,
that's able to engage with this meaning substance.
Let me find that. So I'm here where the t-shirts are now multiplied and they are big and small, and you know, what does it mean to have a t-shirt, to be a t-shirt? So the t-shirt is something that you wear. Something that you wear over your first shirt over your skin. I think that's part of the t-shirt meaning. And it has like short, how do you call it?
Short sleeves. Yeah.
Short sleeves. So yep. Now there are new pictures. Now you said I need to go deeper into the pure concept of a t-shirt. So what do? I peel away, I take away all these pictures of t-shirts, and what is left? How can I know that there is a concept of t-shirt whatsoever?
Do you still understand the meaning of a t-shirt even though you're not seeing a t-shirt? And do you know the difference between a t-shirt and a donut?
Okay, I experienced something. I experienced some kind of touching of something. I experienced that now if I think a donut, oh, there came a donut picture, but now when I go back, wow. So what I do, I can move, something is moving in my field of an image, but it's not an image, it's more like a state of being. Like almost if there's a transparent universe, and the meaning or concept of t-shirt is like individualized pocket which I can stand in, and it has this light quality as well. Okay.
Yeah, I think the light quality is a very important place where we have to go through a transition zone. So now I think we're right on the edge of the real experience. So it's at this point when we're about to get out of the labyrinth, and uh, I invite all of you to try to follow us to this experience in your own consciousness. But it's not really something that's entirely in our subjective control, because the personality, the subjectivity, is something which is constructed by the thinker. But the thinker is really a member of a soul world and a spiritual world. And for us to really go through and to come up against this threshold and to open ourselves up to the other side, it really requires a moral turning. We have to wonder about what the good is,
Okay.
how I can treat another person, how I really engage in knowledge activities with the world. Am I just using the world for my own devices? So one has to come up against a threshold that, even though it has to do with thinking, is closely associated with heart activity and closely associated with these questions about, wait a second, can I look at myself in this moment? Can I look at the nature of who Scott is, of who Jeremy is at this transition zone where, as you said, I'm just emphasizing it again, we went through to experience of a concept, the activity of thinking in a concept, and now there's perhaps a little opening of light which is shining through this meaning structure from, let's say, from another side.
Okay, so I'm there in the concept of t-shirt, and now lead me step by step. You spoke about the threshold. How do I experience the threshold?
I believe the threshold is a transition zone where I I become, the possibility of becoming a larger type of being arises, where I see, wait a second, my thinking activity is everywhere. This whole time I thought that I was thinking inside my head, but actually my conceptual activity has been inside the gigantic world, that we're swimming inside concept land, that
Okay,
our thinking is inside the a concept land, which is all around us, and
and
that
now I
we're
need
in
to
that.
find that. How do I find that?
Finding it is, it's tricky, because one can't just force one's subjectivity to bash your way through. You have to come in a very gentle way to the edge of the place where your own concepts end, and there's still a thinking activity going on. And now you see that the I am, is standing at this edge, and the I am activity is standing in a realm of concepts, and one opens one's heart to this, the possibility of being thought by the other side. Can I open myself in a gentle, waiting receptivity for the world thoughts to think in me, and still maintain my connection to everyday consciousness, but experience this enlargement of my own nature. And yeah, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, I'm still in the concept of a t-shirt. So what do I do with the t-shirt first?
I think that you can follow the T-shirt out. You can wait for the T-shirt to be enlivened by the other side. You can ask yourself what is any article of clothing. What does it mean for any being to be clothed? And this concept of clothing can be can take one out until one recognizes that now the concept of clothes is actually a world fabric. The world fabric is open on all sides, and it has the possibility to carry one on wings, or to be carried on wings into a cosmic fabric. So you say, now, okay, now, but the concept has changed. So you see that the human concept is, the subjective concept is really about, well, what humans wear, and they build in Bangladesh and then they ship to Walmart in Pennsylvania, and I go and buy one, to this concept, this sacred concept of any kind of robe, any kind of fabric. But now the fabric is experienced directly. The fabric is experienced directly as a quality of spiritual experience itself and soul experience itself. So this means that there's a living back side to concepts. There's an open land where concepts are nourished. There's an archetypal land where one can experience the nourishment of all concepts. And this really allows the whole concept of t-shirt to be renovated. And in fact, our whole notion of what a human being is also renovated and renewed.
So now we can see that Scott has showed me 3 ways outside already, but I'm still inside. I still need to make that activity by myself. And this is what we meant when we said that you can't follow us, or nor Steiner can lead us. The only person who can do that jump that Scott has done and I'm not is, well, each individual. But let me Scott, try once more.
Please
once
do.
more. So, okay, let me do the activity and you just, kind of...
I'll hang out.
Not hang out, but...
I'll lead you there.
Yeah, so...
I'll support you.
Yeah, so I'm in the experience of... I can find the t-shirt. I can change from t-shirt to donut and back to t-shirt. Right, so there's a movement that is happening somewhere in another state of consciousness. And now I go and I try to answer the question that Steiner posed, that can I find myself there? So how, let's go step by step, Scott.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I do, I think myself. Is it?
Yes. Who thinks in the realm of concepts? Who is the one that guides the attention from one concept to another?
Okay. I go there, I'm asking the question, and there's this experience of as if I kind of catch my own tail, and there's this movement that it's me, and that me doesn't need anything else than itself. So there is a concept of me, concept of I, that I can intuit by my own activity. And where is it? Scott, where is this place? What is this place?
Mm-hmm. It's a place before inside and outside is set up. It's in a really creative zone, because it can create, through its activity and the cooperation with world substance which lives in thinking, a inner and outer, new bodies, new directions, new extensions, new ways of considering itself.
So are you saying that that activity, which I am part now, is also creating the concept of outside, inside, the same way it creates a concept of I, or it creates a concept of hat? Well, what I just did, that when I saw this, I was able to find that spot in this plane where the idea of I need to find a better hat for this.
Now the true evolution, the highest evolution
exactly.
of the Pokemon has arrived.
So it's not third eye, but it's actually 4 eyes.
Yes, yes.
All right, so I experienced the knowing, living, kind of a new state of consciousness that I'm part of, and I can move there, and it understands, and I can join in that understanding, and in that way create concepts. So for example, when I create the concept of your hat, I just, I know how to do it. It's crazy. It's like I'm in the knowing itself, and that knowing leads it's like intuition, but the constant, how do you call it?
Moving in different directions, moving everywhere. Yeah, I think Fichte is a great leader here because he was able to take the Kantian experience and kind of shoot a projectile out of it to experience this self-intuiting eye in any dimension, so that everywhere I look, the creative eye, is in the midst of concept land creating. But I also really think it's important to indicate the moral gesture here, and that is that this isn't a solipsistic, isolated, fully detached subjective I, which is now like leaving the body, like I'm now astral traveling, and now I'm totally free and I create in the astral world all my lucid dreams. No, this is a self which is expanded and connected gracefully with the whole group of spiritual hierarchies, essentially, and all the soul beings in the world. That this act of meaning creation is not something that I just dream up out of nothing, but it's a creative, co-creative, cooperative act with the real constituents of the universe, which are spiritual beings, but also myself. So the myself is enlarged. My notion of what an I is. My I is penetrated by world meaning, by the beings that create I inside humans, and the capacity to will and feel as a whole cosmic earthly being. And this allows the human to be. I mean, this allows me to answer the question that Steiner presented in the beginning: that can man find a place where his activity is self-sustaining? And in a sense, this is the place where I find my activity that's self-sustaining. But who's sustaining me? Really, it's the world creative powers which sustain me. But nevertheless, they give me my own space of freedom, where they say, yes, we are here cooperating with you, but you have your own space to become yourself.
Okay. So let me ask Scott you another question. If this is not a solipsistic experience, meaning that it's just my own imagination, can we meet there? Can I witness the same becoming of this world creating process as you?
It's a good question. What do you feel? What do you think about this? I think the answer is yes, but it's not an answer that can be given beforehand. We have to search for it. We have to find it. Are you part of this world process, or have I forgotten about my brother when I went off to dreamland?
Okay. I tell you what I experience now. I experienced that I partly forgot everything because I was so happy that I am, and because I feel hurt in my heart. I feel that still I'm greedy. I want that satisfaction all for myself. And in a way now, when I'm traveling there, I experience it something more, but partly myself is still trapped in my personal bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I reach anything else than this self-supporting activity? Is there a way to open myself up and to find reality?
Mm-hmm. I feel that there is a possibility, and that is, can I receive you into my own nature? So let's say we went out on a journey to find the ends of cosmic thinking, but now if we look back at our previous experience of being in the labyrinth, we go back to the labyrinth, and I go back in and adopt the viewpoint, but now I keep an openness toward you. And I say, is there something free in you? Is there a concept that only you can create, that I can only understand by you acting it, by you living it, by you demonstrating it? Can I listen to you? Can I receive your space of freedom into my own nature?
Are you saying that being now free in my thinking, that you are suggesting that I go back to my labyrinth?
The labyrinth is a wonderful place because it's our place where we live on the earth. It's a wonderful opportunity to live an earthly experience, 21st century.
I thought I was free now.
No, we can't fly away forever. But
all right. So I come back. I can't come back now totally, because part of me is still in primary, that another plane of consciousness. But you were asking, can you create a concept that only you can perform and I can meet you there?
I think that it's a cooperative activity in a way. So we say, okay, we start off this quest by saying, is Scott Hicks absolutely free? But once we get to the end of the struggle, or let's say one long path down the wrestling match, we see, wait a second, there's really a social respiration that's happening here, where I see that Jeremy has something to demonstrate to me about the nature of my own I that I can't quite grasp inside my own bubble. That you show me, you shine a light upon my own soul that I can't quite shine in upon myself. You allow me to escape from my own labyrinth by being something other than me.
Are you saying that I can find your being in my creative thinking and give it to you, something that you don't possess without me? Meaning there is part of me in you that only you can reach. And how can I find that? How can I overcome the me here in the living thinking? The only way I can do it is to experience the pain of being alone in the universe, and the pain of because this is not because of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of us, it's because of we, it's because of our becoming, and it's because of this cosmic becoming is dependent on us.
Yeah, it's not just that we're dependent on something outside of ourselves, but I'm dependent on you and you're dependent on me, not in terms of dialogue, but in terms of that we're unified with the spiritual pulsing fabric of the universe, and the I of all humanity is living in the depths of our own selfhood, and showing us the way.
You said you are experiencing that. Yeah, I have.
As a question, as a riddle, in any case, as a mystery. I'm not saying that I'm understanding it fully.
So, when I hear you I experience that there is something in that light that is not me. That actually the giver of the light is shining, and I meet you, and I meet me, and I meet the possibility of creating something new out of this experience.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you meet me?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's co-working, so that we're not isolated in two different T-shirts. The T-shirts can overlap inside of the formless creative substance that's continuously being created in the universe.
So we are part. We think about this. This is the real shit. That we are part of the same world becoming, as well as independent agents, independent force that we also share. And now when I speak to you, I experience that how the cosmic becoming process is coming through me. I'm letting it back there, and you can form. Just seeing you, I experience you there. I experience you and me as a part of the whole, yet independent. And the way we can share this reality together, it feels like this is the real, this is something real. And everywhere I see around me, everything is manifestation of this. Okay.
All right, well, I think we have to momentarily stop recording our human questioning and our struggling to wrestle with these root riddles which aren't solved. They're not solved. They're world riddles which continue to wave in the breeze of the cosmic fabric. So thanks for watching, and we hope to make more of these videos. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Scott.